Welcome back. So today we're going to do the casing of the bolter and the non-metallic on the sword. And first we're going to do the casing. I've already prepared the base color, and in this case it was the car. So what we are going to do now is just highlighting the casing according to where the light should come from, and it's going to sit on the body like this. So our light is coming from this angle, and I'm starting by mixing a bit of desaturated yellow and I'm just starting to apply that, starting back here, and it should desaturate the casing even more. So starting on all those edges, we're going to be putting in a shadow color too. So, well, shadow color slash weathering, which means I'm going to shade down the lower areas a bit by adding an orange brown, so that it looks a bit more rusted and weathered, and both the edge highlighting, or the highlighting here, and that weathering slash shading is going to add to a three-dimensional appearance of that gun, or exaggerating shadows and highlights like we should do on miniatures. Okay. So I'm just layering up that color. And I want a rather muted, desaturated, off-white color. So that's what I'm shooting for here. Like I said, I'm not worried too much about actually painting super smooth gradients at the moment, because we will go over this with a few washes, and it will get a dirty, weathered look anyway. So just blocking in a bit of light and shadow. Okay, so you can see we'll still have a bit of a gradient from here to here. And this is both, like I said, showing our showing our light situation, and then I'm going to make that impression even stronger by adding the weathering, like I said. Going for some stronger edge highlights, because this is some more, yeah, there's sharper angles, and we can go for a bit more of a comic approach with this first step, and then we're going to bring back some, you know, more quote-unquote realistic approach with the weathering, and I'm going to show you what I mean when we're done with this. Okay, so having a few little features like this, for example, which is basically half a pipe. I'm not too worried, I just try to highlight those edges and then just dab on a bit of color, just so that it's distinguished from the rest. Also, we have some element here, but it's more like a, yeah, an assembly of ridges, but I still just cover those with some off-white, just to distinguish it from the rest of the body of the gun. Just going to do the same here, and we're also going to probably do this back here in non-metallic, but for now I just want to work with the casing, so applying some of the base color here, and then just adding a bit of the off-white, and now it comes out a bit more than the rest, which is fine, and like I said, just distinguishes everything just well, those details slightly from the rest of the casing. Just going for one more highlight on those edges, and I think I'm going to add some white. Because those are rather sharp angles and edges, and I just want to have some focus on them. And I'm not going to cover them completely in white, I'm just adding a few spots on the very corners. We can also do that with our details here. And then maybe go like this, and back here. Yeah, so just the very outer regions in this case. Also this detail here. And we can highlight this casing, well, the eject for the bullets. Yeah, and this sets up some good contrast, I think. Let's see, what else can we do? Probably gonna do this also here. Go back because I missed a few parts. Guessing this would catch more light. Also this. And again, we are painting nurgle, so we don't have our surfaces to be super smooth and blended. We can have them have a few details and imperfections. Okay, then back with some more white on those parts we just covered. Always having a bit of a hard time just highlighting parts that face straight down, but just for the sake of someone maybe turning it around and looking at the backside. We're also going to put some focus on those edges and the details. Probably going to shade this area a lot more than the rest. Okay. yeah, so compared to the white, I think we can be a bit more brave with our highlights. Okay, so this is going to be our base that we're going to work with. Next step is going to weather the whole thing. Okay, so to do the shading, I'm going back to my bestial brown. Again, if you check out the back issues and the PDF that I'm going to do for this miniature, I'm going to add a few or suggest a few mixtures that you can use instead of this. But this is still the best thing since sliced bread, obviously, for applying rust and weathering, especially if you want a more comic approach. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to start by mixing some of the base color with this, so that I don't, so that I can somewhat prepare the surface. And I'm just applying a few glazes to slightly this color on the surface there. And in order to also reach the lower part and for example these cuts here, I want them to hold that color and have an even coverage, as opposed to just letting it flow into the recesses. Also going to do this and this. Of course, if you are in a rush, you can just go right in with glazes and washes of that color. But I just like to apply a more controlled first layer. And this also shows how the colors interact with each other. Serves a bit as a color test. But again, if you're in a rush, that's not really needed. Okay, so I'm also going to be applying this orange red to parts that I haven't really painted yet, just to set up the rust also on these parts. So there's a few areas like this that I'm just going to tint, and then the barrel and also the bullets and the clip / magazine. Hashtag I don't know any military definitions. Okay, so same here. So in case, and I think we're going to paint this in a non-metallic later, non-metallic color later. So in case we're going to be applying some steel non-metallic there, we already have the base of the rust, and I can just apply some glazes over it with the other color, and the rust is already creeping into the recesses. Okay, back to our pre-shading. Well, I just call it pre-shading. I don't want to overdo it, so I'm going to tone this down a bit. Okay, again, the barrel should receive some of that treatment with the pure bestial brown part back here, and again the clip. We can already start by making some parts a bit darker. So in this case, I'm just going to work around this plate that they put there in the middle, and I'm just going to make that lighter, I think. And just make the rest darker. Okay, and usually just after you apply it, it looks a bit weird, but it's usually getting better once you start. Once it starts drying and you're applying a few more of those layers. Okay, making the recesses darker again. And starting to cover the areas that face down and should be even darker. Okay, so we're just going to continue glazing this up to darken everything down. again, just going to keep our focus on the edges and the recesses to distinguish the single parts from each other. And as we continue doing this, the orange-brown is going to build up and cover more of the area and look more intense, and then should end up looking a lot more like rust. And once that is done, we're going to go back in and we're going to add some detail and some cracks and some torn edges. So I'll just keep doing this. Can always fade out edges, or coffee staining with a wet brush. So this needs one more pass to look intense and really bring out the orange brown to its full capacity. Okay, like I said, you can see the orange brown just coming out as you apply more and more layers, and this effect is going to get better as you apply more layers. So don't be impatient. If you just apply one thick layer, you don't have the gradient and the subtle change in color here that we are aiming for. So just be patient and apply less and less, cover less and less area as you move on, and decide which area you want to be the darkest. So in my case, I said I want this area in the front to be darkest. yeah, and then just create a contrast and a gradient. And since we already had a gradient from light to dark here, the effect is just going to be more intense. Okay, and again, one more thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to go back in with some lighter areas and paint with some lighter colors and paint a few textures here and there. Maybe have a bit of color variation in this part, since right now I think it looks a bit boring. So let's see. And again, I want the rust to be established before I go back in and bring out some of the base color again, just for intensity's sake. So when doing rust, another thing that you can do is when you want some texture, or yeah, some real texture on your rust, what you can do is mix a bit of baking powder, baking soda into your color, and you know, mix it and just apply it so it's still colorized and it sticks. I might be doing that in another video. Here I just wanted to work with color. We'll do some more effect painting and structure painting in future videos. Okay, we'll leave this to dry. I think that's as far as I want to go with the rust. Okay, so I decided to add some more colors to my palette. Added some black, also added some field gray, and I did add some of the Caspian blue. And I'm going to be covering the parts like back here and this, and I'm also going to do the clips, at least one of them, in that mixture. But for that I want to cover most of this in our rust color, because here I do have the black still shining through, and it's going to desaturate the bluish color that we're going to mix, and it's going to make it darker, so I'm trying to do that also here. It's just gonna be a bit of a different start and probably gonna be a bit of a different outcome, but it's worth the experiment. So I'm just going to let this dry. And meanwhile, I'm going to mix a color here that is somewhat pleasing and serving the purpose that I want to achieve. So this is a rather dark, desaturated turquoise maybe. Can add a bit more of the field gray. I want this color to be a bit more neutral than the other greens, and I don't want it to overpower all the other greens there too. So I'm just going to paint around all the rust that we applied. So down here. So I kind of like the idea of having a boulder casing around some parts that are darker, and then have the boulder casing be lighter. You could also do it the other way around, you know, if you want a dark casing and then have those parts maybe stand out a bit more. Both works, I guess. I was a bit undecided on what color we're going to do these, but I think this is a good approach. Okay, so this is not yet dry. We're just going to do the other side. Okay, paint this side. You know, it could pass as an aged steel that is, yeah, gotten darker, or maybe was dark to begin with. But yeah, this allows us still to have the rust color really intense, as you can see here. And that's the effect I want to keep. So yeah, I'm just going to apply this as a base color. Let's see how it looks here. I mean, I'm also going to paint this clip in that color. Again, not touching the recesses as far as possible. Oh, there's some bullets peeking out here. Might have to do something with those. Let's see, just touching those a tiny bit so that they are not black to begin with. Okay. Also going to be covering this part, as I want it to be lighter but still have a different color than the rest of the casing. Okay. Let's see how it looks over the red here. Again, leaving out most of the recesses. Yeah, I think that works pretty good. So just leave out all the recesses. We can also paint this in that color. It sets up a rather dark non-metallic steel. And we're fine with it having a bit of a spotty finish. Also cover the rivets. Just going to need one more layer of that. Alright, and I think we're going to go for that base color here too. Kind of have to, I guess I'll be a bit more picky on where I'm going to apply a glaze of this so that we still keep some of the red shining through. Yeah, I think I like the rusted look. It almost looks a bit yellowish. Just gonna dab on a few spots of the darker color. Right, then we can try to bring back some of that effect by just covering this area with orange. I think that's going to make for a good effect. So just going between those two to invoke the effect of that material being rusted through. We're just going to go to and from, maybe twice. Right. Okay, and to this color we're going to straight forward add some white. And we're just going to, let's see. Yeah, let's highlight this color here since this is facing up. And just mainly focusing on the edges, as I still want most of that material to look dark and yeah. Like black metal, dark metal. So again, just focusing on edges, also the rivets. Right, then just putting a hint of light on our edges. It's going to look like they have been scraped off. Maybe he just hit something with it as he passed, and a bit of the more shiny metal was coming through again, and that's our intention here. So we're just playing with the orange in the recesses, then some dark base color, and then the edges are going to be light again. And we're going to get our contrast back by this. Just a bit of a texture finish here. Also here. Can also do this down here, so this is maybe an area that has been handled a lot since, well, it is a handler. Again, when you do plan your texture, don't get too regular. Just add, cuts of different sizes and lines of different widths, and don't make it just lines. Also dab on your brush sometimes. And again, on top of a dark metal, dark base color metal, it's going to look pretty good. Again, be patient, don't go too light, too fast. The more layers you put in, the better it's going to look in the end. Okay, always focus on the edges that face up. So in this case, this round here. Oh, actually, yeah, since this is the area of the light, we should go more like this. Right. And then make this panel lighter, also add a bit of detail. Okay, just needs a bit of black lining here. Actually, we can mix in a bit of the rust color there and just line this. Okay, more white to the mix, and now we're also already moving into the last highlights, and we're just going to apply it to areas that we really want to stand out and shine. So here, maybe also down here. Right, and just do the whole dabbing onto the edge that you want to highlight to kind of simulate the effect of it being textured, and you know, that's like a battered edge that has been bent and dented and so on. Don't forget some extra focus on those edges that face up, in this case everything that faces towards this side. And we can add some more texture. Yeah, this reminds me a bit of how, what did they do? The AT-43 miniatures, the alien robots, they did have that. I think they had more or less the exact pattern of red, almost rust-like elements over rather dark metallic bodies that did look quite intriguing. I guess that's where I got the idea from to do this. So yeah, that can be a really effectful way to do rusted metal or non-metallic without it being too shiny, but still have a lot of effect. I guess I want to go back in and darken some of those areas, but let's just do the last highlights and the last few textures. Okay, the other side, just going to quickly do this. Okay, and last highlights, just putting in those white reflections to have good contrast. Okay. Going back in, I'm not 100% happy. Well, not happy is maybe exaggerated, but I just want to detail this a bit more. Okay, so when applying highlights to an already scratched area, usually what I do is I keep the scratches in the same direction, because maybe it's just a scratch that has been made there with something that dented the surface just slightly on the outside and on the inside, maybe like a finger, and then the tip just applied that extra force in the middle of that scratch and made it more intense there. So that's the idea behind that. Right, so I'm kind of happy with this. Like I said, I'm just going to be applying a almost black wash, just mixing in a bit of that gray to not have just pure black. Let's see. Yeah, and I'm just towards those very light parts, I'm adding a wash to darken these, since this is still metallic, and if you have a really light area, you probably want a rather dark area next to it. So this is going to be what we are trying to simulate here. Yeah, I think you see what I mean, and I think you already see the effect. Right, maybe a second one, just make sure you don't cover too much of the white. And we can also do this on the other side. Again, this side is a bit more muted because I yeah, because I feel like wouldn't catch as much light and would be more in the shadow since it's pointing down. Okay. Yeah, so I like that. Before we go back in and do some scratches and chip paint effect on the casing, I'm just going to add some color to the edges that we lost here. I just somewhat want to bring it up to the lightness of those edges, of the edges of the metal parts. Okay, then overall it could still look a bit boring, so just to break up the surface a bit, we can have a bit of a mid color, actually mix in some yellow maybe, and then just add some texturing, some stippling. Okay, and then we can, for example, play on that scratch here. Just paint it a bit wider. Then we have some areas here that face down. We can also batter those up. Okay, then we have some room here that we can play with. Or some area actually. Okay, always can bring out some more edges. Okay, I guess I'm calling this done. One thing that we have to still do. Okay, we just cheated and added this edge and it looks good, I think. So yeah, one more thing that we have to do is this bandage here. Haven't really decided how to do it, but I'll come up with something.